Okay, so later we're going to start at probably about 9 o'clock. That's about 4 minutes from now. Now, this one is what modules for you guys? Is it a fourth or fifth module?
Fifth.
So while we wait for the rest to come in, what I would like to do for today is to go through, in the beginning, the morning, is to go through more in depth about the assignment. And then after we finish the assignment, for those of you who thinks that you already understand it, you could leave the room later. But in the afternoon, if you have any more questions about this subject itself, I could take any questions that you may have. All right. So we'll just focus on the assignment first. I will give you a structure on how to write the assignment, take any questions that you may have, so that you're clear about the assignment, and then we can look at the subject matter later on after we finish the assignment. Okay, so there's two parts to your assignment. I'll go through the two parts. Now, as I discussed about the assignment, if you have any questions, you can always stop me anytime, or you can actually write down in the chat box. I'm going to share my screen. Mohan, Mohan, you there? Mohan, if I were to miss out any
Dr. Tom.
if I were to miss out any questions in the chat box, you can just bring them for me, okay?
Sure, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir. All the best.
Good morning, Dr. Tom. Just to check
Hi.
with you, my name is Daniel Lee. Just to check with you, your presentation later, you will be sending actually to the administrator for updating, right, to the portal, right?
Yes, I will put it into the portal for you.
Okay, thank you.
So how has your journey been learning online? I think must be quite strenuous, isn't it?
It is like you need have to juggling between works and also study as well.
Yeah, correct. And then especially the environment is so hot nowadays. So and then you get cooked up in the home, right? Sitting in front of the computer is not easy.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe I will just start now. Okay. Now, usually when I do this tutorial, I like to start about the so-called academic expectations in terms of the critical thinking that's required in your assignment. So I'll probably spend about half an hour just to do this one. I know that sometimes it's already in the beginning or rather halfway of your MBA, but sometimes I like to refresh it again. All right. So if you just bear with me, it's only about half an hour. Now, this is actually something called the Bloom's taxonomy. So, and this is the level of knowledge that you go through in your journey of learning. So, if you look at your learning from primary school to secondary school to college to university and to MBA, this is the level that you're looking at. So at the MBA level, what they expect to see from you is really level 7. They call MBA level 7. Level 8 is PhD. What they expect to see from you is analysis and synthesis of information. So if you were to just plug data, example, if you read an article, you paraphrase it and copy it into your assignment, that is not good enough. You really have to analyze what it means, right? And synthesis is actually looking at different articles of the same subject matter and trying to explain the pattern that comes out of these articles. I will have examples which I will show you. So there are many forms of writing academically, right? The first is something called descriptive writing. This is the simplest type of academic writing, and usually in any paper, your composition of descriptive writing is only about 10% because the purpose is really to provide facts of information. So if you are talking about a particular business, right, and you want to describe the business, yeah, then that is called descriptive writing. So in any paper that you have, do not spend. Sometimes it is unintentional, right? But it tend to have a lot of descriptive writing. So be very careful about the kind of writing that you put in. The only way to do this is to understand whether it's descriptive or analytical. When I talk to some of my students, right, is once you finish your assignment, right, leave your assignment for a few days. Go do something else, completely do something else, so you are not focusing on assignment, and then come back to your assignment and read it again. You may find there's a difference when you read your own assignment. So you will find that why do you write it this way, or why did you explain it this way? Okay, so do that as a process. So the first type of writing is descriptive writing. You should not have more than 10% of this kind of writing. The second one is called analytical writing. Now this is where you try to have descriptive writing a bit, but you are organizing all those descriptive writing into some form of analysis. That means you're grouping information that goes together into one form, right? So if you are talking about your business, maybe you're talking about environment and how environment affects your business. So you're grouping, let's say example, politics, that's one effect. You're grouping policies, that's another effect. You're grouping technology, that's another effect. So this is a form of analysis. Now I'll give you some examples later on. Persuasive is you have analysis and then you add in your point of view, which means, example, you have got data from, let's say, different articles to talk about how technology has influenced the structure of your business. After you've done that, you explain what does it mean from your perspective. Okay, so this is very important, especially in your academic writing. They want to understand what are you talking about, what is your point of view, because if you were to just put in the analysis about data, now different people have different point of view. They may say if you just put in analysis without having your point of view, they might say you're wrong. So always put in your point of view and how you see that analysis or the situation, so they understand where you're coming from. Okay, so persuasive or rather critical writing is important. And of course, criticality is we talk about your point of view and another point of view from another person. So this is like a balancing views of the same information. So when a person reads it, they say, okay, this is what you mean, and this is what you understand it to be, and this is a diverse point of view. So it is a balancing approach when you talk about writing your academic. Okay. So this is what they would expect from you when you're writing your MBA program. Okay. Because a lot of times, I've seen a lot of assignments. They tend to be very descriptive without any form of analysis. So as we go through the assignments later, I will so-called highlight areas that you should talk about in terms of analysis. Okay. Now, please stop me anytime if you have, if you need me to discuss certain areas more in depth. Okay, there's a question here. It's about new business startup. So I would like to take the fictitious new company as cafe in business. Should I take any existing company and then do any product development or completely new business with new target? Okay, so this one is when you talk about this new business, you can take a completely new business or a new product or services in an existing business because it's still new. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's a completely new business or an existing business, but going into a new direction or new industry or new focus. I would suggest that depending on the kind of business that you're looking at, make sure that you have enough information, background information about the business. So example, if you are going to talk about blockchain, right, in Malaysia, maybe that kind of information may not exist too much in Malaysia. Okay, so think about that first before you decide whether you want to have a new business or talk about existing business but a new products or services or a new industry that you're going to. Okay.
Dr. Tong?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. I saw on the questions. I think it is being written there as something like joint new venture, whether it is a new product or also that you can actually do because or repositioning, stroke change and stroke turnaround. So if you say example if you because if it is entrepreneurship, then it is new product. But if it is the lacking of a new product, new inventions like that, then if you take say example business turnaround and how do you write those?
Okay, if it's a business turnaround, obviously you are trying to go into a different direction, right? Or maybe doing something differently. So that would also be a form of entrepreneurship. That means you are actually taking your old business and moving into a new direction or restructuring your business model, right? Just to turn around that business. So that can also be a form of entrepreneurship. Does that make sense? You know?
Okay, let me try to get it down. So it means that if it is turnaround or change, then the change where they are heading to, and this is how you link that actually with the entrepreneurships, like business
Yes.
model where they're heading to.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. If let's say MAS, if they keep on doing what they are doing previously, they'll probably go bankrupt, isn't it? So if you were to, let's say, take over MAS, what would you do differently to start making money? So that is a new business, right? It could, when we talk about new business model, it could be focusing on different customers. It could be focusing on a different value proposition, or it could be focusing on different ways of earning money. So those are all the different aspects of a turnaround.
Dr. Tom, I do hope that as you go along with your presentations, you can incorporate a bit of this turnaround because I think it's quite relevant and because now it's pandemic and a lot of companies is having this problem. And I think because 1 week time from the last lecture until now, I'm still struggling trying to look out what is the suitable product and stuff like that. So when I thought of it, I having that a bit of problem actually to come up with that product or services. I may look into maybe change or turn around companies and tackle it that way. So I hope you would incorporate in your presentations into some turnaround. I hope you can do that. For
Sure. When we go through the structure, you can always raise up this question again, and I'll try to put in context for you. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. There's another question. In addition to birth story, I would also like to know that assignment 2 is all about developing the presentation with 3,000 words. Okay, so I will explain that those process of the assignment 2 and assignment 1 later. Okay, okay. So if you still have any questions when I explain it, please feel free to ask me again. For business startup, can I use a franchise company, for example, like Old Town Cafe? If you really want to push yourself, I would suggest a new business, because franchise business have an existing business model and they're all the same wherever you go. So if you think about it from a perspective, it is also considered entrepreneurship, right? But maybe you may not have a lot of things to think about because it's just about copying the existing business model. Okay, unless you're talking about a completely new franchise that you have actually come across in US, you want to bring it to Malaysia, and you're the first one to do it. So you can also do it from that perspective. Now, if I'm speaking too fast, please kindly remind me. Sometimes I tend to speak too fast when I get excited. Okay, so in summary, critical thinking is really analyzing a text, examine the various parts, interpret the text or the ideas in relation to what you're trying to explain in your assignment. Compare ideas or evidence and evaluate the text itself. Okay, so this is a form of critical thinking. I'll give you an example. So this is what I just said earlier: descriptive, explanation, and critical analysis. These are the different forms of critical and analytical writing. So let me give an example. Now, if you make this statement, attachment theory states that children become attached to adults who remain as consistent caregivers for some months during a period from about 6 months to 2 years of age. Now, this is, what is this actually? What is this? Is this descriptive, explanation, analysis?
Descriptive.
Descriptive, yeah, descriptive. You're just describing a fact, okay? So this kind of writing only comes in when you're describing, let's say, your background or your business, which is probably the question 1 in your assignment, right? After that, you should not have a lot of descriptive writing, okay? Maybe let me correct that. In question 3, you have an explanation of your business model. So you have some sort of description of your business model, but also added on with some sort of explanation, which is this one. So the second part is explaining what you're trying to say. Okay, that means from the first paragraph, it is suggested that this is due to the trusting bond developed from the repeated interactions with certain individuals. So you're explaining why children gets attached, right, to their consistent caregivers. I think for those of you like myself who have previously have young ones, right, and then you have your maid to take care of the children, then you see this kind of bond happening. Okay, but where does the criticality come in? Because if you say this, it must be true for every situation, isn't it? But it's not. It's not true. For example, if you look at the Stockholm syndrome, you know what's the Stockholm syndrome? Let's see how let's call it. Let me type it down. Okay. Have any of you heard of the Stockholm syndrome? Yes, you're right. Yes. Okay. Attached to the abuser or abductor. So, if you say that people, consistent caregivers, they have this trusting nature, how come you have this Stockholm syndrome that people are attached to their abuser? So that is a different perspective. Okay, and that is what critical means. That means you are actually arguing from a different perspective. Okay, so this is where you talk about criticality. You have one point of view, then you question yourself, how come it happens this way? And then when you try to answer this question, you have a different perspective. Okay, so this is what it means by having both kind of point of views in your paper. All right. So this is just one example. I'll give you a technique of how you are able to write criticality. Sorry, there was a question just now that talks about the business, whether it should be 1 to 3 years. I think, and yeah, it's fine. Anything between 1 to 3 years is fine. Not too old, because if you talk about old, then the business models that you're looking at is probably used up already. So you're talking about something new, maybe even like things like Grab, which is a very new business model, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so this is, we will talk about it. This is the process you go through. You have one researcher. Let's say, example, you're trying to understand the impact of technology on your business, you have one literature. You understand what they are trying to say in terms of that literature. Then you read another literature and compare the second literature to the first one. And try to understand, is there a difference in the point of view between these two articles? Or is there similarity in terms of the themes or issues? Okay. So once you have identified the similarity or difference, you read another article of the same kind and then compare with the first two. So this is the process that you go through to understand at least the patterns. Now, why I'm saying that, because if you do a search example, how technology influences your business, you probably see a lot of articles coming out, right? Maybe hundreds or thousands of articles. And as you read through the articles, from the different perspectives, you may see different authors giving you different perspectives of how technology will influence your business. So you will want to summarize all this, exactly what are the patterns that you see in all these articles, or what are the differences? Why would there be differences when people talk about technology? Does that make sense to all of you? Okay, good. Now, this is one model that you can do to so-called generate critical thinking. Basically, you ask yourself questions, all right? Descriptive question is filling the answers to what, when, who, or where. If you want to go into analysis, question yourself as to how or why. So if you read an article and say that technology is influencing, example, okay, let's say example, if you go to a shop, right, even though you have no desire to buy the shop, to buy the products in the shop, when you see, let's say, a discount, 90% discount, the tendency is for you to actually maybe even buy it, right? Of course, if the value is small. So you'll be asking, why? Why do people buy products when they see a discount, right? Even though they don't have a need for this product. So when you answer that question, right, it becomes analysis, because then you have to bring in more studies, more articles to support that question. Okay, so when you write something, always remember to ask yourself how or why. Okay, and then when you explain it, these are the forms of critical thinking. I will give you an example later. Evaluation is, so what? So what if technology influences business? What does that mean? Okay, but for this paper, remember I talked to you about level 7? You just have to focus on the how and why. Forget about evaluation first, unless you intend to do your doctorate, then you can talk about evaluation. Okay, so important thing is to ask yourself the question of how and why. All right, now let me give you an example. Okay, so, sorry, this is a form of questioning. If you see an article like this and it comes up with this statement, childhood is fluid, represented differently within the various institutions in our society. This representation change over time. What kind of questions do you have in your mind regarding this statement? Why it changes? Yes, good. So when you talk about why it changes and you want to answer this, you probably have to get more articles, right? So why it changes, how does it change, could be questions that you may have. So remember about this questioning technique, because it will be very helpful. See why, what does this mean, right? Do the reasons that you gather support the argument? Is there any supporting evidence? Right? Does this match what you know about the subject already? So basically, what you're trying to do is to understand the answers to this question and put it into context within your argument. Okay? So that is something that you need to think about now. So it's important when you write your assignment to take a breather, to get away from the assignment and then come back and start asking these questions. The reason why I ask you to do that is because sometimes when you are involved in this assignment, right, and you become too attached to it, you have a very narrow view. You cannot see sometimes your own mistakes as well. It happens to all of us. So sometimes I will want you to go do something, take your mind of it, then come back again. And which means that it is important for you to do your assignment early on and not rush at the last minute. Okay? I see some of you laughing. Huh? So you know what I'm talking about. All right? And then after you say, oh, I no time, it's so difficult, because actually it's not difficult. It's because you guys are all working, so you don't have the time. So I would suggest that maybe every night, just spend, for the beginning, I'm sure, okay, this is maybe too late, but make sure that you spend at least maybe half an hour at the beginning, right, just to get involved with this habit, so to speak. And then so do it on a daily basis, so at least you don't rush at the last minute. Okay, so now let me give you a piece of writing. All right, spend about 2 minutes reading this writing, and tell me what kind of questions would you be asking to make it more critical. Now, okay, let me ask you first, from 1 to 10, how would you, let's say you're the marker, right? How would you rate this piece of writing from 1 to 10? 8, okay? Who else? 6, 7, okay? Wow, somebody quite high, huh? So mostly it's very high. Anybody less than 5? Be generous. Okay. Okay, now, for me, I would think this is just probably 5 and below, especially at the MBA level. Okay, so I will come back to this one. Okay, now, is this descriptive or academic writing? Yes, the style is formal and it flows well. Okay, so you have that. Paraphrasing, good. So you must have paraphrasing better than quotations. Now, what is the difference between paraphrasing and quotation? In your writing, you should never have too many quotations. That means that kind of quotation. You should paraphrase a lot. So in your writing, you probably can have maximum of 1 or even 2. That's it. All right. Now, they use literature to back up the points. Yes, they have. But the citation is not really explored or interpreted by the student. So many times it uses this to support the fact, but they not really explored deeper about the citation or the the paper they use to back up their argument. To what extent is this analytical and critical? There is an attempt to analyze the topic, but it's not done in great depth. Do you agree or not? It's not done in great depth. So that means the question, the student is not really evaluating the evidence and to see how this evidence that they have is supporting the argument that they have. So that's very limited in the way they look at critical thinking. So let me let me go back to this one. Now, given the situation like this, what kind of questions would you be asking in your this kind of paragraph? Are there any questions in your mind now that you want to know? Are there any how or why questions? Okay. Sorry?
A further justification on the own experience, maybe a case example briefly.
Okay, but if you look at it from the context of this writing, what are they actually talking about? Actually, what is the topic that they're talking about?
Development, how leadership impact growth and development of an individual.
Correct. Okay, so you're talking about leadership. What kind of leadership are they talking about?
The transformation model of leadership.
Very good. Transformation model leadership. So when you talk about trying to explain a bit further, your focus is all about transformation leadership. Now, are there any particular parts of the paragraph that you feel that you need more information about how or why? The why and how is it linked to nursing? Okay, that's probably a good question, and the answer may be further down the road. But let's say if you're talking just this paragraph, what kind of questions would you be asking? The how and why in this paragraph, You don't have any questions on this one? Sorry. Smith explains that this is a leadership which involves the use of charisma and interpersonal skills to enable achievement. Do you have any questions on this one? No questions at all for this statement. You'll probably be asking, how does charisma come into play, isn't it? Right? Or how does interpersonal skill enable achievement? Right? That's the kind of question you'll be asking, isn't it? Am I right? Or you just take it as proof? Yeah, why charisma? How does it come in to enable achievement? So that is the kind of things, the questions of how and why that you might want to ask. So when you ask this type of question, what's going to happen? You're going to answer this question in yourself, and I will show you what happens. The writing will be like this, So from one paragraph, you have probably about 5 paragraphs. And you see, they talk about how charisma appears to be a complex phenomenon to define, blah, 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 right? It appears problematic, so charisma. So they have gone deeper into the writing by just asking the simple question of how charisma or why charisma in the first place. Like how does it come into play? So do you see the difference when you just ask a simple question in your own writing, and by answering that question, immediately your writing becomes more in-depth. Then people can follow you. Does that make sense to you? Okay, I will answer the question first. Because the question is, we have 3,000 words. How to explain that much? But does this make sense to you, first of all? The approach. Okay, sometimes the questions are too straightforward, like explain failure. Obviously, you have things like this: explain basic principles of counter trade. That is descriptive writing. So, like I said, you can have descriptive writing, but your whole paper should not be only descriptive writing, right? It should be some form of analysis. Maybe basic principle of counter trade is this. Why should I have counter trade in the first place? What does it do to, let's say, the business? So that's where you start explaining and start analyzing it. Okay, now 3,000 words. How are you going to do this? Okay, so that means if you start asking yourself this question, eventually your word count will be 10,000 words. Am I correct? Right. So there are two parts to it. One is to do a process and come up with 10,000 words. The second part is, it's like your juicer. How does your juicer work? You put an orange, you squeeze the essence out, right, and you bring the essence. So the same thing. Once you have 10,000 words, now you have to go through the second part is, how can I squeeze the essence of my writing into 3,000 words? Now, the reason why they have word count like this in MBA or doctorate is because they really want you to think critically. So they are putting you in the box. So that's the essence of it. So why they put word count is because of this. They want you to articulate the analysis, which is going to be long, but in a shorter form. Now, how do you do that? Sometimes certain words or certain sentences can be replaced by just having one word or two or three words. So you don't have to talk about a lot of background grandmother story. Make it very factual, very succinct, and to the point, but yet give an understanding of what your argument is about. So if you read a lot of journals, you will find this kind of writing very boring, but you know that whatever they write is of essence. Does it make sense? Okay. So what I hope to do is, I think you can try this. You can start looking at your assignment. Maybe you can go back to your previous assignment and then see whether you ask yourself these questions, right? And see whether it actually improves the quality of your previous assignment. And so there are two parts. One, you ask yourself questions about your assignment. So your writing becomes more critical because when you answer these questions, you have to begin. You have this solid essence of 10,000 words. You are going to now take this essence of 10,000 words and squeeze it into 3,000 words. I know it's difficult, but I think if you practice it enough, you'll probably be like Matrix next time. Matrix, you'll read the code. You can see the patterns in the code. So once you practice this, eventually when you read articles, you don't even need to write it down. You can actually see what kind of argument they have and whether it so-called supports the context of your own argument study. All right, does it make sense? Any questions on this one? Are you all clear?
Yes. We should have had this on our induction, Doctor. We missed it from our induction.
Never too late, never too late. Never too late, you can always improve.
That's the thought.
Okay, at least now when I tell you this, you can refer back to your own and say, oh, okay, right? If I were to tell you in the beginning, you might not even understand it, isn't it? Because you've not done it before, right? So you want to do it from this approach. So now, remember, it's practice. It's practice. It's not something that you can just pick up immediately because you guys are all professionals. Your brain has been wired differently. So now to go into academic is very different. The way they write things are very different. So there's this transition period. I also faced the same problem last time. Okay, so you just have to get into it, right? Some people takes many papers before they get into it. Some people, especially when you're fresh, just come out of, let's say, bachelor's, you probably can get into it very fast because you're still in the academic mode. All right? Okay. So how is this piece of writing different? Is the issues explored with more depth. So what they want to see is the depth of your thinking, which is very important, especially in MBA, right? Now, they try to answer, make sure that when you are having depth, it is relevant to the context of your argument, not something that's different. Like just now you all said that Justin should have explained more. For example, in the article, right? The student should have explained more about the experience. But the more about the experience, is it relevant to your argument? If it's relevant to your argument, yes. If it's not relevant to your argument, don't put it in. Okay? So that is important. Make sure it is in context. So when you write your paper, you have a backbone. Your backbone is your argument. make sure that everything that you're writing is relevant to that tone. Okay, so that's why I suggest that even before you start writing, you try to mind map your key content first in your head before you start writing. So at least you know where the pieces fit. Yeah.
Dr. Tom,
Yes, Daniel.
which means to say, in any issues that arises that you need to synthesize, then first you have to state the factual or the descriptive of the issue essence. Then
Yeah.
the second is you try to write something like what is supporting that. Then the third sentence is something like what is against it. Then the fourth one is what you comes out of it. So in any issues, so there is at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 sentences.
Yeah, correct. But then, of course, that when you do it that way, it may come out to 1,000 words just for one issue, right? So now,
Yeah.
how do you compress it into the essence of it? Which is, of course, not easy. But if you were to keep on reading and how people do it, you already have a picture. But you are right, Daniel. That's the process of doing it. Okay? And later, I will show you a worksheet. I hope I don't scare you. I will show you a worksheet of how you can do it as well. Okay, but this is, you don't have to use it now if you don't want to, right? But this is just to help you. Okay? Would a subtitle help on sticking onto the backbone? Yes, a subtitle will help. So that's a good point as well. Okay, it gives you a structure. But right now, okay, that give you a difference between, this is just for your understanding. There's a difference between essay and report. Right now, you're just focusing on report, so subtitles are allowed. But if any time that you're required to write an essay, usually essay does not have subheadings. It's just introduction, body, and conclusion. But you don't have to worry about it now. Just give you some extra information, right? Now, so once the literature is presented, the student puts their own perspective, own interpretation. So this is what you want to have. When the facts are presented, like Daniel is saying, when the facts are presented, what does it mean to you? Because they want to see you have different experiences, you have different knowledge. What does the fact mean to you? And different people have different understanding of these facts, right? Not everything is in the black and white. Some areas are gray. So they want to see what is your perception of these facts or interpretation of these facts. Because if not, if you don't write it down, your interpretation, they will just use their own interpretation and mark you wrong. Because they don't understand where you're coming from. So it's important to make sure that you put in your own spin, right, or own interpretation. Okay? Fourth point of writing is actually the analysis part. I think that's what Daniel said. Now, personal thought and reflection are always followed by attempts to find supporting evidence. Now, this is important. Obviously, a lot of us has different experiences, but it's important in academic writing that everything you put in must somehow be supported. Okay, now, if you talk about business writing, when you write something, because all of you, example, are colleagues in the business, right? When you write something, they know exactly what you mean. But in academic, even though they know what you mean, you must put supporting evidence to substantiate that point. That's a painful part about academic. Everything you write must be substantiated. So you should not have any sweeping statements. Okay? No sweeping statements. It's important, huh? All right? Now, so the complexity of the issue is recognized. Things are not presented as black and white. Instead, areas of gray are acknowledged. So this is the kind of things that you... So this is what you should attempt to do. Now, for me, that writing, the previous writing, which is long, that will probably be my 8. So if you are able to achieve that, I think I can probably for sure you say that you can get a distinction. Okay, but of course, it must be in context. It's not just about the word count, right? Everything right must be in context. All right? Okay, any questions on this part here? Don't want to spend too much time, but I hope you get the idea that I'm trying to push out. Okay, now synthesis. I got another method for you to think about. Very quickly, synthesis, I suppose, is combining different elements to form a whole. So, which means it's not just a summation. Huh? It's just not summary of all the articles together, right? It is summarize it and then put a different spin or your own interpretation to it. Okay. So the idea here is you have, let's say, your focus area here. You read so many things. You read so many things. Now, how does all these things combine together? Okay. So this is what you want to do. So I'll go straight to the, okay. So one way to do this is through this synthesis matrix, we call it. You have a subject, building a business. You read an article about building a business. So this is your first source. Let's say is from I don't know, Jones, 1990, or Jones 2010, about the article. Now in this article, there will probably be a few key points, main ideas, right? So you take out the paragraph or the main idea and put it here, 1, 2. Then you read another article about building business. Then you compare. Is this article also talking about the same idea or they have different ideas? So if it's talking about the same idea, you put it here. If it's talking about different idea, you put it in another box. You understand the method? Are y'all okay, good. At least I get some feedback. I'm not scared y'all run away a bit. Okay, so now let me give you an example. I've done this for a few articles. Okay, this is an article. They talk about strategy. Have you gone through your strategy paper yet? Not yet. Okay. Strategy paper is very difficult. Okay, so maybe it's good that if you can practice this. Huh? So now, example, this is about strategy. Now, I went through one article, which is from this guy, and this guy, they talk about these areas. Okay. Then I got another article, so I put it in relevance. Now, spend I don't know, spend 10 minutes. Tell me what are the themes you see in all these boxes. What is related by through all these different articles and writers? What is common? Okay, 10 minutes. Can you all see? I think you can see, right? Hopefully. All right, good. So some of you say strategy. Yeah, the whole paper is about strategy, but what about strategy? I want to see the themes. Okay, some of you have got some answers. Okay, I will talk about these answers when I show you the trends in the next slide. Okay, so let me show you the next slide and see whether it makes sense to you. So I put it in color. So color, recolor is what? There's always a link. I think some of you got the right answers, right? First of all, there's communication. It's important to have communication, right? That means in strategy, one of the themes that you must have is communication. So second one is feedback system. So green is a feedback. So you see that people talk about the feedback, right, in all these different articles. Okay. The red one is there must be a link between your strategy and implementation. And you find that sometimes a lot of companies fail because they don't link their activities to their strategy. So that is important. So in this whole paper, 3 different teams that came out. Okay, communication. You see, blue color is communication. Right? You see, even here, different technologies used at different levels. So this is also problem with communication. So what they're saying here is all these authors are saying is in strategy there are 3 teams that you have to look at. One is communication, one is feedback, and one is to make sure that your activities are linked to your overall plan, which some of you have mentioned earlier. Okay, so this process I know is very tedious, but it gives you a very good perspective of how you can put things together. Now, when some of the feedback from the other students is, oh, so it's good, but it's so tedious. So if you have if you are interested to do this, to practice it, I can show you after a few rounds. You probably don't even need this metrics anymore, because your brain has been wired to look at trends now and patterns. Okay. So this is also another technique you can use. Now, this is the part about this. I've already finished the so-called critical thinking. Are there any questions before I move to the proper assignment? Now that you have a context, I hope that you can actually come up with a better method of doing your assignment. Any other questions before I move on? Are you all clear?
Doctor,
Yes.
yes, just a quick, probably a suggestion from you. In
Yeah.
regards to what you said earlier, when you write it down, it turns out to be 10,000 words. Is there any technique or a method that you said earlier to squeeze out the essential part of it and summarize it down?
Okay, there's no real technique because it's just a matter of going through your paper so-called over and over again. So what I do sometimes is I write down everything I have in my mind first. So it could be 10,000 words. The first round when I go in, I sometimes restructure my words to mean the same thing. So maybe sometimes 20 words, I probably can squeeze down into 5 words or 8 words and means the same thing as well. So that's the first round. So from 10,000 words, maybe I squeeze it down to maybe 8,000 or 7,000 words. And I do this on a consistent basis until I come to a reach point of 3,000 words. So, but sometimes when you put down your thoughts together, right, without all the thoughts together, you might find sometimes when you read through again, certain things do not really need to be there. So you can take it out. So this is how the process that you have to go through. So it's a process of funneling, going through many times until you come to the gist of it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's an effort actually. It's a process that you actually go through. That's why I always say that you should do your assignment early on. Hopefully, maybe even after you finish this tutorial, you can start doing your assignment already. Right? I know sometimes it's a pain. Sometimes people do things until we are pressured to. But you should do that as a practice, right? Yes, I will share this slide. I'll put it on the portal so you can use it. Huh? Okay. Let me go to the assignment. Now it's 9:50. Okay, now if you think about the environment of a business, of course you have a business enterprise and the business takes in input. Now input could be any raw material. They come up with the output, right? And then there's a feedback within the business. So example, you're providing a service to a customer, right? You take raw material, you process it, you send it out to customers. The customers complain about your product or services. That's a feedback system. Now, inside the business, you have different people working on different things and communicating with each other. Now, if you are a business person and you have limited budget, where should you spend on to make your business efficient? Would it be your input? Would it be your output? Would it be the components? Or would it be the communication between the different components? So some of you say input. Anyone else? Communication, output. Okay, so basically, if you look at organizations, what happens is every organization has something called the white space. White space means, if you notice, all organizations have this hierarchy of very siloed mentality. You have the HR department, finance department, technology department. I'm sure you came across this situation. A customer wants something which is out of your SOP. So in your SOP, you say, hey, this one does not belong to me. You push it out to another department and say, I think this one belongs to you. That department looks at it and say, no, this one does not belong to me. So what happens? That demand or request is stuck between departments. It's stuck in the white space. Right? It's stuck in the white space. So this is what happens in organization. So but the customers do not care where is it stuck. They look at you as a whole, an organization as a whole. They want the services given to them. So they don't care what happens in your organization. So it is important when you talk about businesses that all your different components match. Now, why am I talking about this? Is because when you come up with your business model, in I think question 3, your different components in your business model must match. Give you an example. You went through the business model canvas. You have, for example, a customer. Then you have channels. Okay, channels of communicating to your customers. Now, does it make sense if, let's say, you have a customer of teenagers, but your channel of communication is, let's say, newspaper, maybe Star magazine or Star newspaper? Does it make sense or not? Right? Yeah. So when you talk about business in a business model canvas, every part of information that you put into the boxes, the 9 boxes, must make a collective sense for your entire business. So that's what you want to achieve, right? So this is the purpose of why I'm saying this way. Now, so when you talk about, so if you do a business, this is, I try to draw out a business environment. You are a company, you have suppliers and stakeholders. You provide a market offering to customers, okay? So in customers, you have to define who your customers are, right? The customers reside in a particular segment in the marketplace. In a way, you have competitors, and these competitors may also be getting same supplies or same raw material from the same suppliers. So when you're talking about you and a competitor, you have to think about what is the difference between you and your competitor selling to the same market. And that is something your value proposition. So you must be able to differentiate yourself between you and your competitor. And this is the middle part of your business model. Now, it is not only having to understand your value proposition. It's also important that you're able to communicate the value to your customers. And this is where your channels come in and your relationship comes in. Because there's no point having the best of something, but nobody knows about it. So if you talk about your business itself, it's important to understand who exactly you're targeting to, what is the product or solution that you're offering, what is so special about you compared to your competitor, right? What kind of resources are you using to provide that value proposition? And how are you communicating the value to your customer? So all this is linked up together, right? As a business. If you go and see your own business, it's probably linked up as well. Businesses that are not performing well will probably have some parts of it not doing well. Okay? Now, then this entire business is influenced by the industry itself. Industry in the form of excuse me, competitors. If there's too many competitors, then of course the industry may not be so lucrative. Then you have the attractiveness of it. Is it attractive? Like example, if you were to ask me, is the mobile phone industry attractive now? So if you have money, would you invest in the mobile phone industry? I mean, as a dealer selling mobile phones, would you invest in it? Yeah, no, right? So it may not be attractive, but have you all gone through the Porter 5 forces? Okay, so Porter says there are 5 forces, right? Which is a buyer, supplier, threats of entry, the so-called substitution, and internal rivalry. Right. Now, if you base it on these 5 forces, mobile phone is not really mobile phone industry as a dealer is not really attractive to it because there's too many buyers. There's a lot of buyers, but there are so many suppliers. Very easy for new competitors to come in. Okay, although there's no substitution, right? Inside the company is too competitive. But if if it's too competitive, why are there still existing, for example, your iPhone resellers? Why would people still go into this market? Anybody has any idea? Demand, but there's a lot of suppliers. Okay, so high demand but high suppliers, very competitive. So you may not be making a lot of money. Okay, now in the Porter 5 forces, there's actually another force. Okay, I'll give you in the form of example. When you buy, so some of you probably own your iPhone here. Now it's very expensive. People go in and buy. What else do you buy other than your iPhone? Because it's so precious to you, what do you buy? Accessories, case. Now, do you buy these accessories one time and forget about it? No. You buy many times. So sometimes every 3 months, you feel like, oh, I want to change the cover, I go there and change. And because the first shop gave you good service, you go back to the first shop. So actually, by the time, because the iPhone can last so long, by the time you finish with the iPhone, you probably have spent thousands of ringgit on the iPhone, on accessories. So the person who sold you the iPhone, you know how much they make from each iPhone they sell? The iPhone dealer, you know how much they make from each iPhone? 6,000 ringgit iPhone, you know how much they make? 3 times, that's 1,008. They actually make only 2%, which is 120 ringgit. But they make a lot more from you, from the case, the warranty, the accessories, and they could make tens of thousands from you because you're buying regularly, right? And the margin of this is very, very high. Imagine they probably get it maybe for 10 ringgit and they sell it for 17 ringgit. So these are called complements to the industry. Is why, example, when you go to buy a printer, what do you look for? You look for the ink. You look at the price of the ink, right? Because all printers now are the same price, quality is the same, features is the same. You look at the ink. So these are complements. So sometimes complements makes the industry attractive, right? So these are some things you have to look at. Life cycle also important. Life cycle. Have you studied the industry life cycle from introduction to growth to maturity to decline? It's also important because, example, a company built under introduction may be very different from a company that is going, for example, Daniel was saying, turn around, right? Matured company or declining. Okay, so this is in context with what Daniel was asking for. If I have a company, starting a company in the introduction phase, if you look at it from the customer's perspective, who are these customers? Do you think these customers are similar to your mass market? Introduction phase, new business. new industry. No. So what's the difference? So these are called, yes, adopters, early adopters. These are the people who will stand for 2 days to get the latest iPhone. Now, the way they think are very different from the mass market. The mass market pragmatics, right? They will want to make sure that your product is complete and people have used it, tested it before they buy it. So when you are looking into the new so-called introduction phase, your definition of your customers are very different from your definition of a customer in the matured or declining stage. Okay, so if you are talking about a turnaround business, I can assume that sometimes your turnaround business may be already matured or declining. They are shifting. When they are shifting, do I target back the same customers or do I target back the different customers? So if you are shifting to a new business model, business product, different product and services, you are going back to a new set of customers. It's exactly like Apple, right? You look at Apple, they started with what? The iPod. Then they went into iPhone. Then they went into tablet. Okay, so in this perspective, sometimes you may have new customers because sometimes maybe I don't buy the iPhone, but I like the tablet form. Okay, so obviously they have existing customers going into the new products, definitely. But you're also targeting new customers as well. Okay, so in Apple you have this kind of curve like this, then go down. Then a new curve will start up again like this, then go down. Does that make sense? Let me try to draw it out and see whether I can draw it out. So you have like this, right? So let's say iPod, the industry is like this. Introduction, then after die. Then what happens is when they die, they will introduce a new product to the services, to the market again. So what they have is, I lost my cursor. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then they have this one. Oh, shit. Very hard to draw. Sorry. Yeah, like this. Then like this. Right? So this is the curve that you see in Apple. Because no company can grow for 10 years straight, isn't it? Am I right? No company can grow for 10 years straight. So what you're looking at is actually a company that does this. Apple comes up with one industry, it dies. They introduce another one, it goes up. They introduce another one, it goes up. You see this trend? If you see it 10,000 feet, you see Apple going up from here to here. But if you go down further, you will see this kind of trend. Cycles of industry. And this part here is something called the age of chaos. Now, why do I say it's age of chaos? Because the old trend, let's say the iPod trend, is already matured and declining. So the organization have to fit in the model of their organization to fit the declining industry. But then you come up with the iPhone, which is a new industry. The organization has to be very adaptive to the new industry. So in the organization itself, you have two different markets. One is the mature or declining market. One is the new market, right? So if you are not able to handle it properly, what's going to happen is your company will die. It's like how Compaq, when they merged with HP, they died because they are not able to merge the cultures together. Does it make sense to all of you? Because if you talk about new industry introduction, what do you need to have? You need to have people who are agile thinkers. If you talk about mature industry or declining industry, You need to have control. So the structure of your organization are very different. Okay? So these are all important points that you may want to put into your assignment as well, right? Which I'll go through later. Now, so if you talk about business, how businesses are developed, first of all, you have the so-called plan or classical model. What happens is, what it means is you take and understand the industry, what's happening in the industry, then you come up with your business, right? This is called market-based view. But some industries, some businesses are developed through a different method. They develop through understanding your competitive advantage and building the business around your competitive advantage. If you look at Apple, they don't care about what customers want, right? That's what Steve Jobs said. Instead, they say the customer does not know what they want. So what they do is they develop based on their strengths. What is the strength of Apple? What is the strength of Apple? Innovation, tech, quality, right? And they build around this. So all this innovation that they come up with, they don't really try to understand what the customer wants. They'll push out the tech to the customers. And if you do it from that perspective, you have better sustainability compared to market-based view. Why? Because market-based view, the market changes too rapidly. So sometimes it's very difficult to keep up. By the time you understand the industry, you come up with a product and services, it's already changed. So people may not want your products and services. Okay? So sometimes when you talk about business, you may take it from an emergent point of view. Understand your strengths. That's why in your business, they also ask you about your strengths and weaknesses and whether you can tap onto those strengths or not. Example, if you are trying to open a restaurant and you have access to the only 3-star Michelin cook in that area, you probably want to base it on him. Correct? So these are some things that you may want to think about. Now, how does this affect your HR? In order to support your business, you have to think about your HR. Okay, how are we able to know that the upward trend is reaching peak and plateau as we have to start and launch a new product? Okay, this is you have to be very intimate to your customers. That means you must be able to spot trends. If you look at it now, what are some of the things that may be coming up? Let's talk about technology. What do you think is coming up that may change certain industries? AI, IoT. Yes. Let's say, for example, farming. What is a cheap technology that may be coming up that can also transform farming? I know some people use IoT in farming. In fact, IoT is now used in fishery because of the they want to understand the temperature of the water, right? How the fish is doing. So drone, very good drone. And I was surprised. I went to Kuantan to teach a team of entrepreneurs, and you know what this guy did? He because it's a rural area farming, so I thought maybe people may not understand about technology, but this guy is quite visionary. He bought a drone and he rented a drone service to all the other farmers for their checking of their land, right? And also to put in some, the so-called what do you call it, the fertilizers, and he's making a lot of money from that perspective. So drones are now changing farming as well because they are now using drones to help them so-called manage the farms, especially the big farms. Okay, so these are things that's coming now. How long before it comes? You have to observe the trends. It's already started. Okay, so the question is, when does the trend change? You have to be very perceptive of what is happening in the surroundings, especially in your business. So that's why this part here is very important. You have to understand your customers. Sometimes your customers will tell you exactly what is happening in the trends. Okay. Now, so how does your HR relate to your business? Is this form? In your business, in your organization, when you are starting your business, you have people who are individual coming together as a group to provide the skill sets for you to to develop your business. So in HR, okay, you must make sure, this is where you link it together, which is part 4. When you describe your business already, you must make sure that in your HR perspective, you must get the right people so that your business prospers. So your link between your HR and your business must fit. So here is where you talk about analyzing the kind of people that you need, recruiting and selecting it. Then you go talk about the compensation, training, employee relationship, motivation, and performance management. So in your paper, when you describe your business and you describe your HR personnel, it must make sense. Example, let me give you an example. If you are starting a new business in a new industry, what kind of people do you think you need? What kind of people do you think you need? Okay, so a lot of you put example, experience, specialist, agile, adaptive, yeah. These are new things that you need to think. Okay, driven, adaptive, competent, experience. Now, when you put in these attributes in your HR, you have to explain why you think I must have this, so that the marker understands where you're coming from. If you just say, "Oh, I must have the right mindset, I must be driven, adaptive, competent," and leave it as this, then the marker will blur. Right? So it's important that you explain the why behind it. You understand? Because different people have different ideas, right? For example, if let's say you're talking about mature industry, what kind of people do you need? A company in a mature industry, what kind of people do you need? How do you make money in a mature industry? If I were to ask you, you see, if it's a mature industry, what does that mean? That means the customers are knowledgeable, right? The price is almost similar. Example, the printer. Price almost similar, right? Quality is almost similar. How do they make money?
Differentiation.
I don't have much areas to differentiate anymore, right? So how do I make money then? I mean, I can't differentiate anymore on the printer.
Cost efficiencies.
Yes, cost efficiency, if you look at it. So that means, how can I produce the same printer at a much lower cost than that? Right? In order for me to do that, what must I need internally in terms of my people or in terms of the structure? Someone who understands cost, the structure must be such that you must have control. That means everything must be controlled, right? Because if let's say certain things are not there and you make a mistake, you lose out. Does that make sense to you? So in this structure, you must have a structure that is a control. Now, which structure has the best control? Which kind of structure? When I talk about structure means, should I have a metric structure? Should I have a product structure? Should I have a hierarchical structure? Bureaucratic structure? What kind of structure is the best in control? So, you know the army, right? Hierarchical structure. That's the best, isn't it? You just follow what I say. Correct? If you can do that, that means you follow SOPs, your cost can be controlled. But, yeah, too much red tape, efficiency. So you have to have control. Compared to, let's say, a new industry, you need to have agility, like you said earlier, which means your structure may be very matrix. It changes forms as you go along. So you need people to be agile. In a mature industry, you need people who are cost conscious, who follows orders. So the people that you're getting in the different industries are very different. So in your assignment, when you're explaining about the kind of people you need, your HR people, it must fit to the business that we described earlier on. I will show you an example later. Okay? It must make sense. Do you understand? Okay, because sometimes when I read the assignment, they talk about this model or they say that this model is very innovative, it's new. These are all in the so-called emerging trends. But then when talk about the company or talk about the HR strategies and the HR people, it's a traditional. So it doesn't make sense really in terms of your business, right? In terms of your assignment. Okay, so it's important to make sure that you are able to match your HR even in terms of compensation, in terms of the type of training, in terms of how you plan for motivating them. It's very different, very much based on the business that you have. Are you okay? Do you understand? Any questions before I move on?
Doctor, what is the RBV?
RBV is resource-based view. So resource-based view is you look at your core competency of the resources you have and build your business around your core competency. Compared to market-based view is you look around what's happening and you build a business around what's happening. So if you look at today's business, if you look at what's happening and then you build a business around what's happening, it's not possible. Very difficult because the market is changing too fast, isn't it? By the time you come out with a product 6 months down the road, the market may have shifted, right? So sometimes now you have to think about what are my core competencies that I can use to develop my business. Okay, you all get it? Okay, so it depends on how you want to build a business. If you feel I want to build my business from a resource-based view, from my strengths, then you talk about your strengths inside your paper. If not, you talk about the environment that's happening and why you're building this business. Okay, so sometimes it's a match between what you have and what is the industry wants. So you're matching it together. So all this must make sense. All right. Now, market-based view can work for certain industries. These industries, if you are monopolistic, that doesn't change. Example, basic food industry doesn't change. Of course, the product changes, but people still need to eat, right? It won't die. Or clothing won't die. Property won't die. Okay. Other than that, you may have different industries that will die. For example, the last time the iPod, right? The Walkman, it died. Okay, now, example, if I look at it, maybe it's possible that even entertainment or television set may die in the near future because of the forms of entertainment that's coming out in terms of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, it may change. Okay, so people may not even be watching TV, but they will be experiencing. It's possible that maybe they put on the Google Lens or go into virtual reality instead of watching Netflix and Hotstar. They actually be experiencing the movie itself, so it could change. So the industry of selling TVs may change. I mean, this is just prediction, okay? Like you can see now banking is also almost dying. People do not really use banks anymore. They are starting to use, let's say, touch and go, the electronic wallets. Okay, so the banks may collapse as well, and maybe even new companies may come in who are not actually banks per se. Like last time, Alibaba had this Alipay, right? And they are actually not a bank; they are a tech company, but they have so much currency or money going around their ecosystem, much more than a bank. And it was only they failed because of the crackdown by the government. So that could happen. GrabPay, yes, Grab could eventually be a bank. Who knows? When the finance industry is liberalized, maybe GrabPay will offer you loans. So that could happen. So the definition of a bank in future may be very different from a definition of a bank today. All right. So these are things that you probably can think about. Okay. Okay. You want to take a break, 10 minutes break, then come back. I will go through step by step on your assignment. All right. So during the break, please think about any questions you have. Then we can come back and answer your questions. Right. This is just to build a foundation for you, so that now when you do your assignments, you have a better, clearer picture. Okay. So I'll see you. Now it's 10:22. I will see you in about 10:35. Okay. 10:35. So make sure you come back. Because once I come back, I'll start the day. Right. Yes. 10:35. Okay. Have a good break. I'll see you later. Okay. Now, before I continue, are there any questions you have from the previous session? You'll spend a few minutes to answer questions.
Yeah. On the assignment 2, the
Hmm.
uh, the the picture. Um, 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 Previously, in my understanding, you only have to put picture and something like no words.
Okay.
However, how to actually get better points? Do you put something like a bullet points, then you make commentary or you make remarks?
Okay.
One,
Actually, I will go through the assignment 2 and give you a sample in assignment 2. So if I forget to address that, you can ask me again during that time. Is it okay?
okay, okay,
I will give you some ideas at this thing.
very well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay. Let me just start with the assignment. So let's go back into the assignment. I did mention about this, the fact that you have the resource-based view. So what are the tools that you can think about using is to understand whether you have the resources that you can use is this the VRIO tool. Okay, so what you can do is if you are thinking of, let's say, example, like even Daniel was saying, you want to do a company turnaround, and maybe in the company itself, they already got some resources that they think is capable or is powerful enough to build a new model. Then you can think about it from this perspective. Is the resource valuable, right? So maybe you have access to very limited supply of certain things. So it's valuable. And is it rare? Yes, it's rare. Okay, so these are things like that. So it could be a person, it could be a skill set that's valuable and rare. Right? So you go through this process of is it valuable? If it's not, then you are not competitive at all. But if it is, then you have to think, is it rare or not? I mean, can I get it elsewhere? If no, then you have competitive parity. That means you are just like everyone else. But if it's rare, then you can think about it. Can it be copied? Can the resource be copied? Right? If it cannot be copied, then you have. If it can be copied, then of course you have temporary advantage until it's copied. Cannot be copied, then is it organized? I mean, is the company organized to take advantage of that resource? So let me give you an example. If you talk about Apple, what does Apple have in terms of their VRIO? If you go through this process, VRIO, what does Apple have? What is valuable from Apple's perspective inside there? When they first started, okay, when they first started. Now, of course, they have huge market capital, brand image, right? If you look at it, they had Steve Jobs, valuable. Now, why is it valuable at the time? Valuable because of innovation, right? As you said. Was it rare? Yes. So there's only one Steve Jobs. Can it be copied? Cannot be copied. And did the company optimize the use of him? Yes. So that's why they grew, right? Now, if I ask you, Google, what about Google? What do they have? What is the one thing that they have that nobody can beat? Correct, Rebecca? Data. They have data that nobody can beat, right? So, because if you look at it, this is something called unfair advantage. If you talk about new companies coming in, do you think they can get as much data as Google? No, because Google started in 1997, right? There's no way anybody can catch up to them, right? So they will always continue to have this power unless what happens? Unless people do not need information anymore. Okay, so then it will be different. Okay, so if you look at a company, you can look at it from a perspective of, do they have any unfair advantage by using this table to understand whether you can tap onto that resource, right, and to build a business around that resource. Okay, so like example, okay, this one is wrong. I'll show you the Starbucks. Starbucks specialty coffee, yes, it's valuable, it's not rare. Everybody has special coffee, right? It can be copied. It can be copied. Okay, is the organization exploit to do it? Yes. Okay. The only thing they have strong is global presence. So Starbucks actually is not selling coffee, isn't it? They're selling the lifestyle, a presence, a third home. That's their advantage of having that. So people, when you want to meet someone, you automatically think about Starbucks. It's not about coffee or the food because it sucks, but it is about the environment. If you look at how they develop it, they created an environment that's very cozy, and people want to hang out there. Okay, so this is, yes, correct, Celestina, experience and environment. So that is their RBV, their advantage that you're looking at. Okay, so when you look at your assignment, if it's new, you can also look at whether you have this resource. Maybe you as a shareholder has that kind of unfair advantage, or your team has that kind of unfair advantage, right? Or it could be an existing company that's pivoting, that's turning around. They may have certain advantage. Okay, and sometimes this advantage will help you also in your business building, in your strategy. Now, let me give you an example. In the 1990s, Samsung was very strong because they went into electronics. They have a huge. They are probably the market leader in electronics. Why did they not go into R&D in coming up with tablets and innovation? Why did they let people like Apple take the lead? What do you think? They want to learn, but if let's say example, would it be obvious for them to take a first mover advantage? No R&D. They would have R&D, but maybe in electronics. Okay. So yes, correct. It must be costly. They didn't want to take the risk. Okay. So basically, they look at themselves. If they look at themselves, Samsung may not be very innovative in the form of new things, right? But what was their strength? Their strength is, like you said, manufacturing. Their strength is distribution. So what they probably did was, okay, they look at what innovation is happening, is picking up by the market, because they know that they probably can copy it and go into the market much faster than the rest. So they chose, instead of becoming a follower, become a leader, they chose to be a follower, right? Because of their certain strengths that they have in terms of distribution. Because they know, in maybe such a case, distribution is much more important. How do I get the market faster, right? So they chose to do that. Fast follower, correct. So sometimes, even though you have strengths, certain strengths, you will use that strengths to develop your strategy or your business model. Okay, so these are things that is important that you can also use to enhance your assignment as well as your business. Okay, now in your assignment, you have two assignments. I'm going to talk about assignment 1 first and then follow up with assignment 2. Assignment 1, this is the definition, this is your assignment requirement. You are a business coach, you are providing advisory service for new entrepreneurs who are interested to set up business, but doesn't mean that it's an entirely new business. It can also be an existing business, but you're pivoting, like what Daniel was saying. It's a turnaround. Okay. Now, first thing you need to do is, in your task 1, define the business that's been established and discuss the business model of the current business environment. Business model of the business and of the current business environment. So I would think that you probably need about 400 words here. You are not going to go in depth. You are just, like example, casually explain to your friend what is your business all about and why you are doing this. Okay, I'll go into the next page. I'll go into detail of the things that you can think about and to put in. Task 2 is to evaluate the sustainability of the business and how the external business environment influences the business model and strategy of the venture. Hey, sorry, this is it right? No, I think it's this one. Yeah, this one. Okay, I must mix up the one. Okay, this is what you want, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, isn't it? Okay. So this one, so example, first of all, you talk about the executive summary. Now, this executive summary is not part of your word count. That means you have to talk about the overview of the proposal. So I would suggest that you do this executive summary after you finish everything. The context is that if, let's say, somebody has no time to read your whole paper, by just reading your executive summary, they understand the gist of your paper. Okay, so you should write it that way. Now, so the first part, going to the introduction, is the new business concept. Now, there is a new business concept or the new business turnaround. For those of you who are working existing business and they want to turn it around. So in these 300 words, you are trying to explain to a friend the proposed new idea. That means you're talking about products, services, target market, special features, values, benefits, location. This is what you need to look at, right? The assignment itself asking you. Then they talk about the window of opportunity, which is 700 words. Then you're supposed to develop your business model canvas, which is in relation to number 2 that you talked about, your HR strategy, and calculate the break-even point. All right? So this is your assignment. So let's go down into in-depth and talk about some of the things that you can put in. Okay. I would suggest that it could be your table of summary, your table of content. Okay, so the first thing is introduction to business concept. Here, you are trying to explain your business, right, from an overall perspective. So this is there's something called your elevator pitch. In 300 words, can you think about explaining your industry, where you're playing, which field are you playing in, right? Which area are you tackling? Are you focusing into technology, manufacturing, retail, hotels, right? All those different areas. And think about the problem you're solving and for who. What kind of problems is existing in that industry and who needs the solution? Okay? Then, of course, you describe your solution and high-level business model. That means how do you make money? So this is bringing the reader into your business. Very quickly, very broad view. The industry you're tackling, the problems in that industry, who is having this problem, your solution, and how do you intend to make money from providing this solution. Is it clear? Does it make sense to you? Any questions so far? Okay.
So can SWOT be used in this introduction also?
You can back it up in number 2. So the idea here is, I want to tell you what I want to do first. Number 2 is the why behind it. Why I want to do this. Why do you think there's an opportunity? So the SWOT comes in number 2. Is it okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So now that you have...
Dr. Tom,
yeah.
okay, there is a pastel, there is 5 forces, there is SWOT, there is a VRIO. You, in this 700 words, you put all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No.
You put all these 5. No?
No. These 700
Alright.
words, I just give you some ideas on it. Ideas on it, okay? So maybe you have your own table or own formula or own models that you want to use. So be very clear. I'm not saying that you must put all these things. These are some ways that you can consider to put it your explanation. So that means it's important. Number two, to put in some models that you're using. Okay. So example, so number two is environmental analysis. That means the window of opportunity. Why do you think this problem that you're trying to solve has an opportunity? What are the facts and analysis that you can discuss here to support your number one? So here is where you explain why the problem you're trying to solve is considered an opportunity. Is it because there are very few competitors? Is it because it's new industry? Is it because they're changing consumer behavior? So these are things that you might want to put in here and describe it, right? Using some of these tools that you want, or you can use a tool that you're very more familiar with. But the point here is, you are telling me you have a solution to a problem. Number two is telling me why you think there's an opportunity or why you think it's lucrative enough for you to go into this solution. If I'm writing on a new business setup, the who needs a solution will not be relevant. It is relevant because this new business is to sell to who? Who needs the solution? It's a customer, isn't it? What kind of customer are you talking about? So here is important because you want to define that in your business model canvas. Right? So you must have a target market.
So are we selling this business plan to someone?
Yeah, you will be selling it to investor, but I will be asking you, who are you selling it to? How big is the market, isn't it? Right?
Because I thought it's like our own business. No, we are selling, is it?
No. Even if you are your own business, you
Yeah.
have a target market, right?
Yes.
So who's the target market? So
Or
you
who
just
needs
describe
my
it here.
product?
Yes. Who's the
Okay.
target market for your product,
Okay, understand.
right?
Yeah. Hang on, Dr. Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I
Doctor,
put
can I
it,
confirm something?
Yeah, okay. Hello?
yeah, doctor. Like this, doctor. If, say, example, um, we want to write something like we have something like a recipe, food recipe, and we something like creating this business model and write it up. Can we do something like that? Because it is a new business, and we write up everything is based on this food what do you call it? Food recipe or food business model that going into the to the market. Would that be
Yeah,
appropriate?
you can. It is like
Okay.
your unfair advantage, no? Your recipe is 100-year-old. It's a family recipe, blah blah blah. But okay, so this is if I were to take you through that recipe, you are saying that I'm going into the food business. Now, I want to provide this solution, right? Example, I want to provide this because you feel that there's not many people who likes this kind of food or they don't have access to this kind of food. So my solution is to provide this kind of recipe or this food. And how I want to make money is maybe through transaction. I sell them. Okay, I sell them to them on a transaction basis compared to, let's say, subscription model. Even food also got subscription model, isn't it? You pay 100 ringgit, you just eat whatever and deliver. Okay, so that is your high level introduction for your business concept. Then when you go down, you'll be asking yourself, you'll be telling the reader why you think there's a opportunity. Then of course you'll be bringing say, based on my data analysis, 100,000 people of this kind of market exist in Malaysia, and there's not enough competitor in this area. And that's why I want to provide this food business or this food recipe. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's how you should articulate it. Yeah. Okay. The business concept. There's a question here. The business concept can be anything, even developing an idea from CS. It can be even developing an idea from scratch. But make sure that it's not so new until you have not enough data to support your assessment. Maybe it's a technology that's 20 years ahead, right? Then you may not have data. So think about something new, yes, but make sure there are data that helps you support why you think there's an opportunity in this business you're doing. Is there a framework for competitive analysis, and how do you suggest to tackle if the business currently does not have any competition? Okay, if there's no competition, it's definitely very good, but can you prove it? Because I do not see any business that has no competition. Okay, now framework. So what you can do is probably a table. If you want to put a competitive analysis, a table. It's like example when you go and buy your plan for Maxis, they will give you a table. Then you put the yellow color, green color, and blue color. The table compare the features. You can do something like that. Okay, that means what you're trying to say is, example, you have already explained the problem. You have already explained your solution in a sense. Now you want to compare your solutions to your existing competitor. You can provide a table and mark. Okay, my solution has this feature compared to this competitor. This table is not enough. This table is just for them to understand where are you competing, and then you explain those areas at the bottom of the table. How to prove if there's no competitor? Very hard to prove lah. It's only based on the reader. They will challenge you lah. Okay, so that means you must make sure that you are able to. Okay, this is important. Although there could be no competitor or no competitor, there may be some providers that's providing something similar or something similar, or maybe providing a solution that meets certain particular demands that the customer wants. Okay. So from here, you can talk about your value proposition. What are you so different from whatever the solution out there or no solution out there? What are you providing to the customers that makes you so different? Of course, the other thing is, if there's no competitor, one question in the mind is, if there's no competitor, is there even a market to it? Okay. The reason sometimes there's no competitor because there's no market or it's too early, right? And that's why there's nobody doing it. Like, give me an example. MyEG. How many of you use MyEG? So a lot of people use MyEG, right? Oh, so many. So it's almost like 80%, 90%. When was MyEG created? Anybody know? (2010 to 2015), about 4 to 5 years ago. Okay, so actually, I was the original team that created MyEG in 1996. And this MyEG concept was part of Tun Mahathir's vision of creating the MHCE, Cyber View, what do you call it? MHCE, Cyber Jaya. Okay. Now, the problem here is we were too early. Yeah, Super Corridor, we were too early. When we created it, of course, nobody knew about it because the technology or the demand for it was too early. The person who bought it about 7-8 years after we developed it, early 2000, is now the 5th richest man or IT guy in Malaysia. And they're harvesting it because, so that means sometimes your innovation or business model must be appropriate to the timing. So if there's no competitor, it may be because you're too early, ahead of time, yes, or there's no business case to it. People do not demand it, people do not want it, that's why nobody's into it. So sometimes when you are looking into a business, there are two things. Either you are too innovative and you come up with something, or there's no market for it, or you're too early. So that's important to think about. But for this assignment, it's okay. If there's no competitor, you can put it down as well, right? And write it down. It doesn't mean that there's no market, because this is just an assignment. All right? Okay. So number two is environmental analysis. You are trying to explain why you think your solution is as an opportunity. So here you might want to just talk a bit about the market size as well. How big is it? So you can put some figures to it. Why is it important? Because you're going to start calculating your break-even point, the second last one. Okay, so you must give some idea to the reader about how big the market is. So here you can talk about, oh, my market size or target market will be about 1 million people or 500,000 people. Does it make sense to you? But it doesn't mean that you can attack 500,000 people. Huh? Because if you look at, now I don't want to confuse you now because there is a technique to do this. If you want to know about it, we can discuss it after this assignment. There's something called the total available market, the serviceable addressable market, and serviceable obtainable market. But for now, give a figure that you think will be your target market and make sure it's logical. So let's say, example, you're trying to come up with an app, and this app, nobody has it. So your app is, example, for iPhone only. So your whole market is, of course, all the iPhone users in the world. But is it logical to attack them? No. So if you break down your total available market, which is all the iPhone users in the world, who can you target? Maybe only the iPhone users in Malaysia, which is the serviceable addressable market. They call it SAM. Now, is this your target market? Not so as well, because you cannot attack all the iPhone market in Malaysia. Why? Because sometimes it could be hindered by your amount of money you have in terms of marketing dollars, amount of competitors you have, right, in, let's say, same space, okay? Or maybe you're not able to reach that kind of market. So maybe your market now has gone down smaller, and out of this number of iPhone users in Malaysia, you can only attack 10%, example, as an assumption. So that is your target market. And from there, you can calculate the break-even point. So have something like this in your writing. Does it make sense, guys? Everyone, are you okay? Okay, good. Now, after that, once you have explained so 300 words, then 700 words, so it's about 1,000 words, your business model canvas is really a straightforward answer, isn't it? It's just filling in the blanks, your boxes. So what you want to do is, like I said earlier, when you fill in the boxes, and then you explain the business model canvas at the bottom of the boxes, make sure you are connecting all the dots. All the boxes makes a logical story. Okay? For example, your customers and the relationship building, their value proposition, and the channels is aligned to the resources, the activities, the stakeholders. Okay, all these are there in your business model canvas. So this business model canvas can be also in the form descriptive, but with a little analysis. That means you must highlight what's so special about your business model and what are important components in your business that you have to focus on. Okay? Then after that, you talk about your HR strategies. This one is about 1,000 words. Now here, what you want to discuss is about the human resources you will need to make your business work. And as I said earlier, make sure that your HR is aligned with the business that you are trying to go into. So just now the recipe, who was that?
Me, Dr. Tan.
Okay.
Dr.
So if you talk about recipe business and stuff, what kind of people do you think you need?
Michelin, maybe 2.0 or 1.0, I think should be okay.
What else?
A distinctive recipe, that's a good one. The production side, those that can do the equipment and stuff like that, and of course my distributions must be the top of the chain in order to deliver all these foods, to reach out to all the market and all the segments of it. So mapping out of what you produce and distinctive to the place, and also what do they need.
Okay.
Yeah. So, reaching
if you
out.
look at your business, who is the most important person?
The correct,
Who is that?
the chef, the
The
chef,
chef. Okay.
yeah.
So
the
now you
chef.
think about it, from that perspective, if you want to recruit a chef, where would you go? Your recruitment strategies.
Correct. Must be the origin of the person that can come up with that, and also a good apprentice that attach him to that taiko or that seafood.
Okay, so you must know how to recruit them, where to get them, right? So maybe you can say, oh, I'm going to work with the, okay, like you say, master chef participants. Okay, that could be one. I could be working with the universities, right? The food, the people who are teaching food universities to get more helpers, for example, right? I could be recruiting them through existing restaurants. So these are alignment of your HR strategy to your business model. You understand?
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Clear.
Ah.
Clear.
Then, of course, you can talk about it. Okay, you say that you need distribution, you need logistics. Now, there are two choices you can make. Either you hire them, or you can work with them as partners. That's why you have key partners there. Now, here, when you talk about your business model campus and explain it, you can also rationalize why you think I need to hire them or why I need to work them as a partner. So this is where you do analysis.
Doctor, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sorry, you broke up.
Let's say if my business idea needs, let's say my business idea needs another company who has the data availability, but I don't have. So can I partner with them to use the data for my own business startup? So
Yes,
will
yes,
it come
of course.
under the model?
Yes, that's your key partners.
All right.
Okay, that's your key partners. So I think 800 words. Of course, you put your. So what's going to happen if you put your content in the table form in Business Model Campus? It's considered one word only, right? So where does the 800 words come in? It's outside your table of Business Compass where you describe some of the things that you're doing. So example, if you are saying I want to hire my distribution partner rather than working with them as a key partner, maybe you explain why. So what I'm suggesting in 800 words is pick up the key points or critical factors that you think in the business model that you need to consider and write it down at the bottom. Okay, you understand? Like example, if Natini, if you're saying that your partner is providing you data, right? Now this is a huge risk because you are building a business based on somebody's asset. If they won't have a business. So one of the things you want to write down is what are these so-called risk mitigation strategy to overcome this big problem, in terms of your key partners. Does that make sense to any of you? Right? So when you talk about your business model, make sure you talk about critical factors in your business that you need to consider so that the reader or the manager or the investor knows where you're coming from. So you don't have to talk about everything. 800 words is very small. So just bring up those important points in the business model canvas that you like to highlight to the reader. That's important for them to know. All right,
Dr. Tom. Yeah, Dr. Tom.
Yeah.
If, for example, because we are doing the research, if we take the picture, of the sample of the product and stuff like that, how do we integrate that in our report? Do we put something like based on the author's research? Because all this is actually is a primary data, right? Because we actually do the research ourselves and take it ourselves. How do we integrate and put into the reports? We just said that, this is the data gathered by the author, and
Yeah. If we say, okay, obviously when you do your business, when you're describing your business, this is your solution. And so you don't really need to say sourced by your author. What you need to say is, example, if you say you are saying, I'm going to build a business based on this, then you can do a reference to that based on who, that model. But the business is yours. You are describing your business. So whatever content you're writing in is actually you as well. You don't have to say based on authors. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do understand. But you actually referring to another author B, but my author he means to say that I am writing this report, so it is my picture, my data that I gather. So how do I integrate? I just
okay.
put it, oh, this is based on what I have observed at the market, and this is the picture, and this is the situations, and we are going to move forward with this. So how do we integrate? We just write it down like that.
Yes,
Would
you write
that
down
be
like that.
acceptable?
Yes, you write down like that. Of course, if let's say you draw a picture and this picture is original to you, and you want to put it in the report, then it says authored or created by author.
Okay.
Because you are the one who came up with it. Okay?
Okay.
Right. Okay, then after that we go into your HR strategies. I think it's quite clear, 1,000 words. Then you talk about break-even point, which I'll discuss later. Break-even point is they just want to know, have you all studied this break-even point?
Yes, we have been shown on this break-even point, but we also welcome your views of it because we have received one views from the other professor. We also like to see how you look at it and deliver this, Doctor.
Okay.
Professor.
So this is very straightforward, 200 words, but I'll talk about it. Then conclusion, 200 words. Just to confirm about the business model canvas, is it table format followed by description? Is it correct? Okay. So I would suggest that you have a table format, right? To talk about business model canvas is a diagram where you are filling all the boxes. And then, like I said earlier, bottom down, it's not describing everything in your box. It's just talking about the key factors you want to highlight about your business model. Okay? Yeah, I'll talk about the business model canvas later. Sure, no problem. Okay. Okay, so our thing is like this. If I put it in a pictorial form, task one is about, okay, let me go back again. Task one is here. You're describing your business, your solution, whatever. Then task two is you are trying to validate your business by talking about the environment, about the opportunities, about the competitors, about the market, how big is it, what's the share, maybe talk about life cycle if you want to. Okay, I'm not saying that you must talk about everything, because you have a limited word count, right? So talk about important information that you think is necessary for them to articulate your business. Are you clear? Right? Then number three is talking about the business model. That's where you describe about your business itself through the business model canvas. Then task four is about the HR strategy to support your business model. And this is where you talk about your recruitment, your selection, exactly the example that I gave you just now. So this is the flow of your assignment. So if I show you the structure of assignment, it's like this, right? You can see the details, okay. At the top of the pyramid, very little detail. Then middle part, explain a bit more to support your idea. Then the bottom is to support your business model canvas. That means you put it together in the business model canvas. Then the bottom is how human resources you need. So the size of the font will tell you how much you write in your assignment. So obviously, the crux of it is in terms of your human resource that you need, right? And your details of your business models, right? Okay, so this is a journey that you are trying to take your reader to. So if you have this picture in mind when you're writing your assignment, you know where to focus your attention on. Because if you don't see this, then sometimes you say, oh, I spent so much time here, you have very little words here, then you just skim through. Then it doesn't make sense already. Are you clear on this concept?
So, Doctor,
Yeah.
just want to ask, we understand the word count is 3,000, but
Yeah.
if that particular business model that we want to do require more information, can we put it into a picture format?
Yes,
Because I
yes,
understand if you put in a picture format, you can actually show in data. But another thing is the issue is the how do I say, the marker might say you're using the picture format and you're trying to get rid of the plagiarism. So how does it work?
Okay, so your business model canvas is a picture with 9 boxes, right?
Yep.
Now you can put that picture in, it counts as 1 word only. Now, if you were to explain each and every box, it may take you 2,000 words. Then it becomes too lengthy.
Yep.
So that's why I said I give you a word count, 800, is to make sure that you elicit important points that is not really explained in the picture outside your table. Does that make sense to you?
Okay.
Right? So explain the important points. For example, maybe you want to explain a bit more about your value proposition. If you just say, I'm the cheapest and the best, people may not understand what you mean. So you explain that, oh, I'm the best because of this. I'm the cheapest because of this compared to other competitors. Or if you talk about target market, you talk about target market is want to go at teenagers who are just about to go into universities, right? Age between 17 to 18, blah, blah, blah. You want to explain the rationale behind focusing on this target market. If you have not already done so in the beginning.
So is there something that requirement says that we cannot put too many of pictures? Okay, let's say we got our word counts about 3,000, but how much of pictures for us to basically show in our assignment? Do they have any requirement for that? For the whole assignment I'm talking about.
No requirement, but I know some students, I tell you, these are some of the tricks the students use. They image the whole assignment. All the written words, they also image it. Plagiarism becomes 0. Now, all these tricks people know. If you get 0 plagiarism, you will also fail. Why? Why will you fail?
Because actually the plagiarism won't detect when you put in the picture mode. We understand from that.
Yeah. So if you
Trying
have
to
0
cheat the system.
plagiarism, trying to cheat the system. If you have 0, if let's say you did a proper job, you paraphrase everything and you become 0, make sure you put it to 1 to 2%. Yeah, correct. That means you have not referred to anything, That's why it's 0. So make sure that if you have 0, even though it's proper word, it's not picture used, make sure you make it to 1 to 2%. All right.
Okay.
So try not to pictures or tables are good, but make sure it's relevant. Don't simply put pictures or tables just for the sake of reducing your word count.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is it plagiarism or similarity? Yeah, I mean plagiarism is the concept of copying. Similarity is how much similar you are. So make sure that in your software you will see that, right? Now there are a few things you need to look at. Of course, your plagiarism or similarity, okay, is 15 to 20%. Make sure it's around that area. If it's above more than 20%, then they have a cost to look more into detail. So 15 to 20%. If it's 25%, 30%, they will go in and look at the paper. Obviously, sometimes you cannot help it. If there's technical terms that you're using and there's no other way to paraphrase it, then that's it. It's not a problem. And sometimes your similarity is because of your references. They go through the references, right? So sometimes just because you have 40%, 50% doesn't mean that you are actually copying. Doesn't mean that, but it gives cause for the marker to go in detail and find out why is it so high. Okay, so it's very important to keep your similarity between 15 to 20%. To get data, most of the reference will be from newspaper articles and DOSM. Is that okay? Important that you try to get, of course, some of the foundation data you try to get from journals, especially theories or models. But if let's say is data to support evidence, example, number of competitors, how much they're making, then yes, get it from newspaper articles or DOSM. Yes, after filtering bibliography, between 15 to 20% is okay. Now, be very clear. Do you know the difference between references and bibliography? Jamin?
They are the same in the in my understanding.
Okay, anybody else?
Bibliography is for reading and not using the articles.
Okay, they are different. Huh? So, bibliography is everything you read, including the references that you're going to use. So, references are the citation they are used in your paper. But in order to get that citation, you probably have read other papers, right? So, bibliography is a list of papers you've read to filter out the references that you're going to use in your academic, in your assignment. Is that clear?
So, Doctor, can you repeat? If are we required to have the bibliography or
No.
the references?
Just references.
Okay.
Now, as a rule of thumb, if a 3,000 assignment, how many references should you have?
15 max 20.
14, 15, 20.
Okay, or 15, 20. Okay, let's say an example now. To get the 20 references, how many references should you read?
Below the
40, 50.
So some people tell me, of course, if I want to get 18 references, I need to read only 18 references, right? So the rule of thumb is 5 times. That means if you want to be very critical, right, you read 5 times. That means if you're talking about 20, you read 100 references. If you are able to read 100 references, I can almost assure you that you probably can get either a credit or a distinction if you are able to articulate properly and analyze it. All right. So these are things that you probably have to think about. But of course, I know some of you for no time. You probably read assignment and just put it in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Tom, 20 references you say here is 5 times. So meaning to say that they are pro and they are contrary to it, then summarize of it. So it's
Yes.
5. Okay.
That
Understood.
means to get one good reference, you have to read probably 5 different references to select the right good one. Any sites, journals, books, articles to share? Okay. If you think you want to spend some money, this is a very good website. Oh, sorry. Let me share with everybody. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Now this one will cost you about $99 a year. So if you want to invest in this one, I think it's worth it because they have about 10,000 books or 80 million journals or something like that. So these are good for you for your work or for yourself if you want to. If you don't want to spend the money, I think they give you 1 day free. So you can just go in 1 day, 24 hours, and do all your research there, and then pick out the data as well. Okay, it may have changed, but this one I find is quite good. And they have references. It's a collection of references from different publishers. Okay. PubMed, I think it's more for medical references. So you must see what kind of references will be good for you. Strategy would be probably like, let me see, what is that? I can't remember already. There's a few that's more of business side, but I found that the question is quite good, so you can think about it. Okay, any other questions before I move on? If the business does not need recruit more than staff, maybe one or two, no, it can be suitable. Small business can be suitable, but make sure that the staff and the recruitment strategy is aligned to the business. Okay, the process is not about marking whether the business is viable or not. The process is marking whether you understand how to build a business and the HR component to it. So if your logic makes sense in terms of explanation, that's fine.
Doc,
Yeah.
in your personal opinion, what is a good business to venture into?
I think okay. My personal opinion: digital business, online business, something that is something that does not that takes effort only one time and then is recurring. Okay, so example, if you look into online business, food business is not a good business unless you have the margin to do it, because operationally food business is very difficult. If you say example, you sell certain things, right, and you suddenly have demand for it, 1,000 people ordering at the same time, you're going to be in trouble, because I don't think you can deliver that fast unless you have a big manufacturing. Okay, so those are business. So digital content business is good. Like example, Netflix. If you are a writer, or you can come up with something and put it onto the internet, this is something that's replicable. If you're in trading business online is the fastest way to get money. That means you buy from, let's say, a source, let's say China, and sell it here. But of course, the process of doing marketing is something that you have to do as well. Does it make sense to you? Okay, so I feel that online is best.
Yeah, got it.
Doctor, question.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you shared the point number 2 where there was models, right? The pastel models, SWOT and everything, right? There's so many there. So do we just start off? Do we just use one or two, or do we need to? Is there a number that is acceptable? Can we just choose one model and just finish that whole points, or you need to have at least more than one or two, something like that? Or
So I want to ask the question back to you. Do you think one model is enough to get the data that you need to explain? If you think so, then you can use one model. If you think after doing one model, oh, that's not enough, let me do another model, then by all means, right? Try not to fill your content with just models, and data, and no analysis. So that's more important. Make sure it's not a matter of how many models you use, it's the quality of data you can get from each model. If you think that one model is enough, yeah, you go ahead, use it.
Doctor, can I just ask something?
Yeah.
A short question. Okay, you were mentioning about online services, right?
Yeah.
If you are creating a platform, for example, how do you explain the human resource part?
Okay, if you are using platform, who do you need to actually manage this platform?
I see. Okay.
Maybe more technical people.
Right.
Maybe you have telemarketers,
Telemarketing.
customer sales. These are the people. So your skill sets will be very different from traditional business. Right. So when you write this assignment, make sure that your, like I said earlier, your HR complements your business itself.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
Right. Oh, they changed question redirects to gale.com. So maybe they have. Let me just check. Hold on. Let me do a quick check first. Let's see. Yeah, I think they have been bought over by Cengage company, so which is good. That means the quality of information is very good. Oh, you just finished 2020. Okay.
Virgin,
I don't know how much
Virgin.
I don't know how much is it now, but hopefully it's still the same price. Do we look at it from a global perspective or within Malaysia only? I think it depends on the business. Maybe you look at it from Malaysia first, because if you talk about global perspective, then you have too many things to talk about. Then your content becomes wide but thin. I'd rather you go into narrow but deep. Does that make sense? Huh? Deep, in the sense that your analysis is even deeper than having broad and then talking a little bit about everything. Okay? Okay, let's continue. Huh? You can always ask me questions as we go along. Do we need to explain our HR department or just specific to who? No, you don't need to explain the composition of your department. Just explain the skill sets and how you recruit them and how you motivate them and what you need to do for training. So I think I've given you 1,000 words. I think that should be quite good. Don't have to describe too much. Huh? Look at more of the strategic nature of the human resource. Okay, this is something that you, these are some questions that I'm trying to ask you so that it gives you a better perspective of how to write it. Maybe you can read it and then tell me whether you have any questions or not. Can we choose different country for business? Yes, you can do different country if you feel that you can get data from there. What about business that relates to online training? That's good. Business that relates to online training is good, but it's very competitive. But it's good to hear what you have to say. Can we use that business AR strategy as an inspiration and guide for our own? Yeah, you can do that if you want to. Yes, you can. You can do that. HR strategy that's different. You can do that. Can you choose the existing brand? Okay, you can. If you are talking about, let's say, bringing a new brand from overseas to Malaysia, you can do that. Or you want to bring a Malaysian company to overseas brand, you can do that as well. Because you will then have to do analysis of the country, a business model that may be different for the country. Okay, these questions are meant to help you refine your thinking. So as you go on and start writing, maybe you can refer to these questions. Of course, this is not be all and all, right? These are some of the questions here. So I hope that it will help you at least to fine tune your thinking and maybe even create more questions in your mind so that you are able to put it together better and write better. Do we have to use an actual company or it could be anything that we create? If you create a company, sometimes you may not be able to get relevant data to help you, right? So if you want to use an actual company, you can do that. Maybe use a pseudonym for the company. So example, instead of KFC, you can use it as KCF or something like that. A chicken-based company, you can do that. So you can also think about, you can use a new company, that's fine. Just make sure that you have the references or data to help support you, all right? So I'll leave it to you. So if you want to use actual company, make sure that this actual company is going to a new product or services or new market or new business model. Okay? All right, any questions on this part here?
Doctor, good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doctor, referring to the environment analysis question 2 and question 3, so examples that if it's an chemical company being chosen, the concept is not new, but then applying the concept into the new industry, and it's very new that probably because I'm in chemical, so I have the market mappings and customer survey data. So question 1, how do we code it? Because this is own collection data that I am not quite clear in the beginning that Daniel asked. Second question is because it is new in the industry, so the product life cycle is still at very early. Of course, we see competition coming in that yet to be able to prove the concept. So then how are we actually explaining here that, were to tie together with the product life cycle and also the impact to the industry at the later stage?
Okay. So first one, citation is, now I'm assuming that you have permission to use this data. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have permission to use this data, then cite the company or the data from the company. Okay. Which is your own company. All right.
Yeah.
Second thing is, how do you explain that this is a new industry, is a growth stage or introductory stage? Use certain data to help you explain and make certain assumptions.
Okay.
Right? Because maybe it's so new, right? So use references to suggest and make assumptions to suggest and to give the impression that this is new.
The proof of concept, can it be real data collected that we seen from a real success case, and then of course with permissions that we cite it that way?
Can. You can use the real data you collected and use it as a reference.
Okay, thank you,
So that
doctor.
means you say this one has been sourced from actual interviews conducted, at the company XYZ.
Okay, thank you, doctor.
But are you sure you want to put it here? If it's so secret,
Understand, doctor.
because your paper will be out in the open, turning in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suggest you better not do it if it's so special.
Thank you, doctor.
All right. How about any other questions? Are these questions helpful to you?
Yes, doctor. Doctor, these questions we use it for the whole beginning to ending of the assignment, or is only for the 1,000 compartment that you're talking about?
No, it's for the whole background to environmental analysis to business model and HR strategy. I just give you some questions so to make you think, basically. Of course, you have your executive summary and conclusion, and leave it to you, All right. So now the 3,000 words, you can have 10 plus or minus 10%. So it can be 2,700 words to 3,300 words. Don't be too much. Don't have too much words because you will start deducting marks.
Dr. Tom, I have a question. For the business model, right, I saw the point number 2 have this supporting evidence. So let's say just now the example that given is the hiring for delivery, or we engage a key partners for let's say Grab to deliver the goods out. So from this, if I wanted to have a critical analysis, so I need to provide the evidence on hiring, the advantage of hiring own staff, and also the advantages of hiring the Grab, and then do comparison, and then I give my own view. Is that the
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay, so it might easily it might easily take up like 200 to 300 words.
So what you can do is, if you think that you want to do a comparison, put the comparison table.
Okay.
And then you analyze it outside the table.
Understand.
Okay. So yeah, if it's relevant like this, yes, you can use the table.
Is it a must for us to put the supporting evidence in two different way, like positive and negative of hiring and positive and negative of key partners with Grab car?
Okay, so if let's say you present it to your boss, what will he ask you?
Which is the best?
Yeah. Then how do you explain that? You give the pros and cons, right?
Yes.
See, so it's you have to be logical that way,
Okay, understand. Yeah.
Because
Thank you.
the person reading it, let's say you assume the person reading has no knowledge, so you have to so-called give them some guidance as well.
Okay.
Right?
Got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions? I will move on. Okay, I'll move on. Now, do you need to cite on models tools? Yes, you need to cite on models tools as well. Do we need to give a company name for a business startup? Yes, if you can, it's good to give a company name, just a fictitious name. All right, now I give you, okay, this is not quite the same example because the assignment is different. But I just wanted to give you some idea about how they wrote it so that you have an idea of the quality of the so-called relationship between what you write. Okay, so this one is, this paper talks about organizing a child's birthday party. And then they give some insights about why they want to come up with this business. So they gave the problems, time required to organize party, issues of security, lack of specialized venue. Okay, so these are some insights about the problems that the environment is facing. Okay. Then after that, they gave up some insights about the solutions. Right. For example, they want to have a unique and safe venue. They want to have a party of the dreams, right? All with little or no effort from parents. Okay, and they supported this with this kind of citation: child's attention span for activities based on age differs. So thus parties will be structured accordingly. So these are important because you may use it to explain or people understand why your business is like this. So the business that they are doing is a customizable party. So that's why if you put in data like this, they can say, oh, I see why you want to do it this way, right? So you must have something, this data or this supporting evidence to give an idea of why you're doing it this way. So then after that, they talk about the solution. Okay, it's a party center, blah, 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 designed for children's party, will change its theme, activity, offering periodically based on current trends. So then, if I were to read here, and then you come here, then it makes sense. You want to do it this way because of the fact that children's activity changes based on the age. Okay? Then I go
Doctor?
down. Yeah, sure.
Doctor, this writing here, it is only one-sided. It is only something like persuasive. I don't see the contrary to this. To make it something like critical, and you can actually come up with your analysis and your something like conclusion. This is the way forward actually for this business.
Good.
No, there is no.
That means you got what I'm trying to say basically earlier on. So I want you to do better than this. Okay, I'm just giving you an idea only about how some assignments have been written. Right now, obviously this is just part of it. But you have made a very good point. So what I want you to do in your assignment is to put in that kind of discussion. That means if let's say age activity differs, however, some research has shown that blah 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 blah. Okay, but the way she wrote it, I can tell you why the way she wrote it this way, because she wants to defend the concept of the business. So she's picking and choosing what is important for her to defend it. So this is also a strategy that they use to write. Of course, at this master level, you are limited by words, right? Obviously, if there's a lot of words, you can actually do a lot of critical analysis and write more. So try to make it, at this level, I think it gives a perspective that you have understood that there is some critical thinking involved. If you want to do it, you can do it. You can put down the different perspective, but make sure it doesn't go. I mean, make sure you try to contain it within the word count. Does it make sense? I think this is high credit, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, if you put it that way, you probably get a distinction. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll show it to you. So then they use data to back up the market size, right? Contribution of 60%. Then talk about how big the market is, right? So you want to have this as well because you want to also give a perception of the break-even point later and how big the market is. Okay, so they talk about this one, 5,000 to party organizers. So this one gives an idea of the assumption you're making for the pricing when you can calculate the break-even point. Okay? How to describe break-even point? Okay, I'll do that later. I'll come to that later. Are you okay so far? Okay. So then you talk about, okay, this one they did a Porter 5 forces, like I said, shows in the table. Right? Now, the table here is, you see, here are all the description. Impact and profit, more, less, more. So in the writing below, you can just so-called summarize what does it mean. Does it mean that the industry is positive, negative, too competitive, too not competitive, right? That's what you want to do. So you show this table to gather the facts, but you must have a summary below the table to give your point of view. What does it mean? All right? Because if you don't have that, then it doesn't mean anything. You must summarize your thoughts at the bottom. Then after that, you look at it. After doing this, of course, I cut and paste. I cut only those important ones. You look at their manpower. Their HR strategy is so-called aligned to the business that they are trying to do. Agility, right? They want to have agility because they are trying to create a business that's different according to the business model, according to the consumer, right? So they have to need people who are agile to be able to change. So that's why it makes sense, right? The HR person that they need together with the business that they are trying to create. Can you see that relationship? Can you see that? The so-called context that they're writing and the relationship between each section? Yeah, so that's important. Huh? So I want you to try to think about it from that perspective when you're writing your assignment. The story structure must be logical. And then they went into talking about how they recruit people. Yeah, you need to have a flow, correct? How they recruit people, they use profiling because, why? Because they want people with an agile mindset. So they use this to profile people with the agile mindset, motivation, because they know they're providing a business that is going to be changing according to the preference of the consumer. So they need people who are able to adapt to changes. So that's why they do profiling, okay? And then they have a training development for people with child psychology, which makes sense because they are into child. And how they recruit it is through LinkedIn profiling because they want professionals. Okay, so these are things that you need to put into place when you are talking about the assignment. Is it clear to you how you should write your assignment now?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, good. Anyway, I'll put it into the portal so you can actually refer to it as well, right? If you have any questions, I will put my email here. And you can send me questions. Huh? Don't send me the day before you are supposed to submit. Huh? I won't have time to read your questions, okay?
Hi, Doctor. I have a question.
Yes.
In regards to citation, prior to this, we were informed that we have to use at least in 5 years ago citation. But looking at this article, it goes back to 2001, 1998. Can we go above and beyond for 5 years, or we stick to 5 years only?
Okay, it depends on the business. Technically, they say that should not be more than 10 years. But today's environment is moving too fast. So technically, 5 years is correct. But they may be, if your business is so new or so old, outdated, then you may not be able to find current references, right? So try to use as current as possible. This assignment, by the way, is not recent. It's many years ago. You understand what I'm saying, right? So 5 years is a good indicator. If necessary, you can use up to 10 years. So if let's say a model that you're trying to use and this model has not changed, probably the last reference is maybe 10 years or even 15 years ago, right? So you can use that. When you talk about models and theories. When you're talking about new environmental changes, then of course it has to be a bit more current. Not more than maybe 5 years because the environment has changed. So whatever references you're using that's more than 5 years, it may not be able to support your argument currently because they've changed.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, how do you describe break-even point? Yes. Technically, this is actually my next slide. Technically, you have a cost in your business. Okay, you have a cost. The cost can consist of variable costs, which means as your sales increase, your variable costs increase. For example, cost of goods to, let's say, packaging is a variable cost. The more sales you make, the more packaging you need to have. So that's a variable cost. The other one is something called fixed costs. That means whether you have sales or not, you still got to pay these people. So rental, salaries, depreciation. So these are fixed costs. So the break-even point is how many units of products that you have to sell to make sure you cover your costs. Okay, so that's a break-even point. That means in your business, you have to know if you're selling a product or service, how many of these product or service you must sell to make sure you cover your operating costs, which could be your fixed costs, the rental that you're paying, the salaries you're paying, the depreciation you're paying. So imagine this, if let's say you are paying a rental of 2,000, you have 3 staff, maybe total together is 5,000 plus electricity you should pay, so maybe 6,000, and you are selling a product for, let's say, 10 ringgit. Okay. Now, how many products do you need to sell to cover the 6,000? Okay, 600 is the assumption that you have no cost when you're developing the product, you know. Am I right? That means your entire revenue when you sell you sell the products of 10 ringgit, right? You're assuming that you make clean 10 ringgit, but it's not possible, isn't it? So assuming your every sale that you make 10 ringgit, you only make 50% margin. So then how many products you need to sell? 1,200 products. If you make a margin of, let's say, 30% only, how many products do you need to sell? Probably about 1,800 to 2,000 products there. Because every product you sell of 10 ringgit, you're only making 3 ringgit. So to reach 6,000, you need to sell 2,000 products. Am I right? Do I make sense? Okay. If it's a contractual business, can I use break-even for invested capital loan? You mean you want to use... Okay, loan, if you have loan, if you take a loan, and you have, let's say, monthly repayment, that is also part of the cost. So when you calculate break-even, you have to use that as calculation of the cost as well. So the formula is like this. Okay, total cost, that means consists of total variable cost and total fixed cost. We define break-even as a level of sales, either units or dollars, that causes profit to equal 0. That means how many units of products in either units or dollars you need to sell to make sure that you're covering your fixed costs. So the formula could be very simple. It is like this. You want to find the, okay, let's say example, Q is the quantity sold, P is the price per unit, V is the variable cost, and F is the total fixed cost. The formula is like this. Now, EBIT is earnings before interest and tax. So this is what you want to know. So what is your earnings before interest and tax? So make it simple. Make it simple. Look at your total fixed cost. Okay. And this fixed cost comes from the amount of money that you're going to spend for your HR and the kind of infrastructure you need. Now, where do you get this data? Where would you get the data to understand what is your fixed cost?
That's like monthly rentals and salaries. And,
Yeah, where would you get this information? Well, I mean, the components of your fixed cost, where would you get it?
from the forecast.
Huh?
From the forecast that you want to do.
No, from your, remember the business model, your business model canvas? Remember that?
Yeah.
The bottom there's a cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the things that you get it from there. So in the cost, you talk about your business model, you want to look at your fixed costs, right? Your cost there. So you talk about your salaries. Maybe example, you have resources you require, you need machinery. Okay, how much is that? Machinery in terms of whether you are actually buying it on a monthly basis. So these are the fixed costs you need to pay. Rental, electricity, salary. So you estimate how much are you paying for all these costs. Alright? Then you estimate the margin that you're making for each product you're selling. So these are all assumptions. So example, you can say, okay, I'm selling, let's say, what are you selling? Recipe, okay, example. So maybe from your competitor, you say my recipe I'm selling at 15 ringgit per recipe. Now, in order to come up with this packaging, I need to spend maybe 7 ringgit, right? Together with some marketing of another 1 to 2 ringgit, my so-called variable cost is 9 ringgit. So every time I sell a 15 ringgit product, I have to spend 9 ringgit. Does it make sense? So I make 6 ringgit per product. So my cost is, let's say, 10,000. I make 6 ringgit per cost. I just show that how many products I need to sell to cover my 10,000 ringgit. Yes, all this cost is based on your own estimation, assumptions. But be very careful. Example, if let's say you are trying to say, I want a Michelin star chef, you cannot say I'm going to pay him only 1,500 ringgit a month, isn't it? Not logical, right?
Yeah.
So your cost assumption must be logical. And your pricing also must be logical, which you probably can get from some of your analysis from your competitors or some assumptions you're making. You can get,
Okay.
yes, job street to get estimation of salaries, yes, you can. Okay, are you guys clear about the break-even point? So it's not a lot of work, it's only 200 words. Basically, you just want to explain your break-even point and just explain what are the assumptions you're making. So the 200 words is just to make the assumptions you're making, which must be logical according to the business model that you described earlier. Are you okay, everyone? Okay, good. I've taken more than, okay. Do you require to forecast the revenue earnings for the business? I think not necessary. Just do the break-even point is enough.
Dr. Tom, I may have lost a bit. Just to get back to it, just to clear up my ambiguity here. So break-even points calculation means that what is the unit? What is your total fixed cost, and how many units you need to produce in order to cover your fixed cost?
Yes, but the units that you are selling, there's a margin to it, right? It cannot be 100% margin. Right? To
Correct.
produce that product, you need to have a margin, right? So what is
Yeah.
your margin? What is the assumption you're making?
Oh, so margin total you need to get that X margin, and this margin will be covering your fixed cost.
Yeah, correct. So example, if you are selling a product for 10 ringgit, to produce a product or for 10 ringgit, you need 5 ringgit, okay? So every time you sell, your profit is about 5 ringgit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if your fixed cost is 10,000, right? How many units you have to sell?
10,000 divided by
2,000.
5.
2,000 lah, correct? So that's it lah. So you explain the profit break even, and then you make you write the assumptions you're making within the 200 words.
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you don't need to elaborate on the calculation. What you need to elaborate is the assumptions you're making. Why is it 10 ringgit? Why is the margin 5 ringgit? You know. Detail the fixed cost. Yes, you have to give your assumptions on all the fixed costs that you're having in this business. So where are your major fixed costs? So if you want to detail out and you don't want to use the words, you can put it in a table. All right. How about if it's a cafe, you want your fixed costs? Of course, rental, electricity, your staff salary. These are all your fixed costs, isn't it?
Doctor, I have a question. Does the
Yeah.
business have to be a complex one, or can it be a very simple business like an agriculture business, like a farm?
You can make it simple, but I try not to make it so simple until you got nothing to talk about, basically. You know.
Okay,
So,
depends on the content that we have.
Yeah. Don't make it too complex as well, right? So make it just nice. So if it's a farm also is not considered simple. It's also very complex because the supply chain is there, correct? The models you there. You know, the
No, I mean simple to understand. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay, simple to understand is fine.
Okay, thank you.
The quantity is the number of customers per day. Now I think you can just put it broadly. Whereas per day or per month is still the same, isn't it? In terms of the break even. Okay, make it. I will leave it to you. Let me see per day. Yeah, you can put it per day. They just want to know what's your number of break even per day or per month or per year. And the assumptions, more important is the assumptions you're making. Okay. Are you okay with assignment 1? Because then I'll move into assignment 2. Okay. So assignment 2, I think some of you got some questions. I hope I can remember. Okay, now basically assignment 2 is presenting your slides. And the emphasis is on the deployment and also the application. So now, each slide they consider is 200 words. Now, some of you asked me whether I should just put the slides and no words. I think what you should do is they consider the one slide is 200 words, but if you need the description of what you're putting in the slides, please put it below the slide. So example here, let me show you. This is your Word document. This is your slide. Now maybe, example, of course, one of the points that they will mark you on is the presentation of it. So maybe when you present to people, if it's too wordy, people don't like it, isn't it? So maybe your presentation is a lot more graphical. Now then you want to make the reader understand what you're trying to say, put the words below the graphics in the Word document. So you insert this as an image, then write the words here. Not too long, So maybe as a ballpark figure, I would say maybe about 100, 150 words is good enough. Are you clear? Are you all clear? Okay. Okay, so do that. So 15 slides. So you're talking about 15 slides, so that you have. I'm going to break down the slides for you. Now, the assignment 2 talks about implementation, about challenges they may face during implementation, right? Okay, so I would suggest that you can break it this way. Slide 1 to 5 is a summation of the assignment. So now pretend that you are trying to come up with a slide to present to your boss or to investors, and then suddenly you got sick and you need to have your friend present for you. So what would you tell your friend when he's trying to present for you? Those are the things that you want to put in your notes at the bottom of your slides. What are the important points that you want to highlight to your friend so that he knows how to present it for you? So same thing, when the reader looks at it, when the reader looks at your slides, they want to know what is it you're trying to say. So put that in your notes below. Yes, you can use PowerPoint, but you, of course, no, PowerPoint, I think, I'm not sure whether I don't think you can. You put a PowerPoint for your presentation, then you insert the PowerPoint into your Word document, and then you upload to your Turnitin for checking of plagiarism.
Yeah, so doctor, we for marketing management, right? We took a screenshot of the PowerPoint slide, and then just paste into the Word document. Is that? Are we going to do the same?
Yeah, you can, no problem.
Okay.
Just make sure that sometimes because there's a limitation, right? 2 meg, isn't it, for Turnitin, right? So if your screenshot is very heavy, the picture alone may take a lot of space, isn't it? So when you put it together, it may be more than 2 meg. So just some of the things that you may come across. So you compress it, correct? You compress it, all right? Can we directly convert PPT to PDF? I think you can, but make sure it's readable PDF. Because Turnitin, I think they must be able to read the document and count the similarity. If not, they will mark you at 0. So this one you have to check with it. I mean, I think you probably can do it. Okay. Okay, slide 1 to 5 is summation of the assignment. So do not have to repeat what you've done in assignment 1. Just summarize it into slide 1 and 5. Okay. Then slide 6 and 9 is talking about implementation. How do you intend to implement or deploy your HR strategy? Question here, you want to put the business model canvas in slides. You can put one slide to show your business model canvas in slide 1, between 1 to 5. Then after that, slide 6 to 9 is talking about your implementation of your HR strategy, because it's also an MHCE. Then slide 10 to 11 is the challenges you face when you're implementing it. For example, do I need to do a change management process? Do I need to fire people? Do I need to hire people if it's a new business? Right? I mean, when I hire people, what kind of challenges do I face? Okay, maybe I will face, I don't know, training problem. I'll face skill set problem. Then what do you do? Right? What are the possible risks and risk management strategy that you have to think about in the business? And slide 14 and 15, your recommendation and conclusion. So that would be some composition, an idea of a composition of your slides. There is a high percentage of plagiarism from our own assignment. So you are saying that you are reusing your previous assignment to do your new assignment. Am I right, Norman?
No, Doctor. What I meant was assignment 1 and assignment 2 is similar, because assignment 2 is the presentation mode of assignment 1. So there's huge percentage of plagiarism there.
But you notice slide 6 to 15 is completely different content, right? Because in the assignment 1, they don't talk about how you implement, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Based on your recommendation is a little bit different. So we have to do it a little bit different from 6 onwards. But when we did it in marketing management, it was supposed to be copied from assignment 1 to assignment 2. So there was a very high percentage of plagiarism there.
Yeah, correct. I understand. But you try to paraphrase it. You don't put the words in. but you paraphrase certain words. Yeah, I know it's a bit difficult. But if you look at the marking, they emphasize a lot on your professional approach, right? Your presentation. Okay, so but anyway, what they'll do is also look into your plagiarism and where is your plagiarism coming from. Okay, so my idea here is just to paraphrase some of the words that you're using and make sure that you're not copying directly from the assignment one.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. Now let me see. Is it all? Yeah. So final thoughts. Careful about plagiarism. Make sure you have evidence when you write, and limit your descriptive writing and have more critical thinking in your assignment. Okay, I'm open for questions. Or would you prefer to take a break and come back for questions? I mean, go for your lunch, come back for questions. So you want to take a break for lunch? You can come back, right? Okay. 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 So what time you want to come back? 1 o'clock is okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, 1 o'clock. So maybe during the lunch, you have a lot more questions. We can discuss it then. All right. So I'll see you at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Mohan.
Yes, sir. Okay.
We go back to the same link, right?
Yes, same link.
So now we can come out first, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So I see you later. Have a good lunch. And don't eat too much after you get sleepy.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Doctor.
Bye.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, doctor.